Heidi ho, how's it go? Welcome to Whole Lotta Rich. I'm Rich Latta. Today we have a very special returning guest, Peter Wilson. Good to see you, Peter.
Great to see you, Rich. Thanks for having me back.
How are things going with your music?
Super great, super busy. Finishing mixing three new solo tracks that I did less than a month ago, and they're sounding incredible. It's going to eventually be my next, they're going to be on my next solo record, but we're probably going to be releasing them as singles throughout the year. And I'm mixing in the final stages of mixing the new Four Trips Ahead record, which is a full album, and that's sounding fantastic. And I am in the midst of writing and recording a fantastic hard rock, prog kind of whole other thing with a tremendous set of musicians. They're actually pretty well known. So hopefully, when we do another one in the coming weeks of some other cool group that we find, I'll be able to tell you the progress on that. But that will be a bit of a big deal. But I can't really talk about it yet because some things need to be secured first. But that's super exciting. So there's going to be a lot of new music that I'm making coming out within the next year, year and a half. So I'm super excited.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're on a hot streak. Yeah, you're you got got a lot of pots on the burner.
Indeed, I
That's
do.
great.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. And so this is shaping up to be a really cool creative year, and I'm very excited about it. So
Right.
that's
Excellent.
cool. And that's why I was super excited when you reached out to me and said, "Hey, what you want to do another one of these?" And we were talking about lots of bands, and I'm very excited about doing this band in particular.
Oh, great, great. Yeah. So, yeah, we are ranking the six studio albums of Living Color plus top 10 songs at the end. My memory is imprecise, but I must have first heard Living Color when I saw the video for Cult of Personality. I believe I picked up the debut album Vivid soon after that. I believe that was on tape. Um, I was pretty much an instant fan. I was totally blown away by Living Color, and I thought it was really exciting to see a bunch of black guys play heavy rock and absolutely slay. You don't see that every day. How about you, Peter?
So for me, because I'm in New York City, Living Color, it's it there. I have such a special, deep relationship with the band. They meant, and they mean a lot to me. I think that so I was growing up, starting to play little shows here and there, learning to write music, learning to sing properly, doing art, and going to music and art in New York City. And at towards the end of my high school experience, Living Color was playing a lot in New York City. So I was able to see Living Color before they got a record deal. I had a friend of mine, it's actually my sister's godfather, who kept going to see them and said, "You need to check out this band, Peter. They're fantastic, Living Color." And I got to see them right. They had gotten signed, but the record Vivid wasn't out yet, and I got to see them at CBGB's, at a packed CBGB's, when I was like 17 or so, or, round about that time, and I was floored. And it was like almost like a holy experience where I was like, wow. And I had several experiences. 88 was a really 87, 88 were very momentous years for me, as an artist and as a listener. And there were all these important records that came out in 88, and Living Colors Vivid was one of those records that just like, and their whole thing and their live show, because I got to see the songs live first. And here's some things that actually never made Vivid, which was really cool too. And they were just tremendous. And I just started seeing them all the time. And then to watch them at CBGB's, and then I got to see them in literally my hometown of Flushing, because they opened up for the Stones on the Steel Wheels tour like a year later, and they were opening up for the Stones at, what was then Shea Stadium, now is Met Stadium, which is walking distance from my parents' home, and I got to see them open up for the Stones. So to see their meteoric
Oh,
rise
wow.
was just really, it felt very special. And you were kind of like, and we're from New York, and I was like, yeah, New York, New York hometown heroes kind of thing. And
Did you ever meet him?
yeah, so actually, I'm very friendly with. I got to be friends with them much later. So, my first very serious, well, I should say second very serious band that was pretty known in New York City years ago. We opened up for Corey Glover when he had the Hymns solo record. And we got put on a bill with him, and it was fantastic. And Corey and I became very fast friends. And then he invited us to play with him a month later, and this was at Wetlands way back when in the late '90s, and we became friends. And and I got to I'd see him around. He'd come out to see my old band's show, which was great. He's an incredible person and sweetheart. And then I became friendly with Vernon through mutual music friends too. I hung out with him not too long ago. Actually, it was, well, I guess it's been a while now. It was a few years ago. There was like a Bowie tribute show that he played at, that a bunch of musicians in New York City played at in Harlem. And I got to hang with him a couple times when he did that. And that was really cool. And he and I are kind of, on social media friendly and say hi once in a while. And he's also a really tremendous person, just put out a great solo record. And he's just like they're such great guys. So I've been friendly with all of them on and off, over the years. But that came after I was already a devotee, a fan of what they were doing musically. So, for those of you for your watchers and viewers and listeners, know that they're actually amazingly really terrific, down to earth people. So that makes, loving the music, you love them even more because they're such humble, great guys, and they're these incredible musicians and writers. Like really, you can't get a better band of people. If you break them down individually or as a collective, they're just so powerful. Very, very great band. And they still sound, I would actually argue, Rich, that Living Color live now, as incredible as they were from the get, they are just as great. And I would even argue maybe better now. I saw them maybe a year and a half ago with Extreme, who were also fantastic, and it was a great double bill, and they were incredible. Like not just like kind of good for their age, they're like incredible. And I saw all these younger people that kind of want to check out the hearing of the legend of Living Color and the legend of Extreme, and they were bowled over. And I think especially with a lot of newer acts that you see that kind of they sound good on record, but they can't really pull off that experience live. Seeing a group like Living Color, who are just terrific, and then they really take it to another level live, it really bowls people over. So yeah, so I have a deep connection with Living Color and that whole scene, and I feel like I owe them somewhere in my musical DNA. I owe them. There's a big, heavy piece of me that's like that group means a lot. That was a really important foundational stone there.
That is fantastic, Peter. Wow. I love to hear all that. Good, give me the good feelies here. All right.
Good.
Why don't I go first since you went first on our last video?
Let's do it.
Okay. So my number six is their fourth album, Kaleidoscope. It's from 2003. 10 years after their previous album, Stain, Living Color finally returned with Kaleidoscope. The band retains the pessimistic attitude they had on Stain, but not the ferocious rocking. They did work on new material right after Stain, but due to creative disagreements, couldn't get an album together. Some of the tracks from those sessions came out on a compilation album in 1995 called Pride. As for Kaleidoscope, the band does rock, but I gotta say the magic spark of their earlier material is largely MIA. There are some occasional trippy elements, Middle Eastern touches, big industrial drums, electronics. Vernon Reid can always be counted on for some shredding and some cool guitar effects. Sometimes the shredding seems a little out of place, such as on Lost Halo, which is not a heavy rocker. It works though. Flying is a very cool funk-inflected rocker that's also really heavy because it's about people jumping out of the burning World Trade Center on 9/11. There are, in fact, a few songs here about 9/11. Sometimes the sound is very muddy, but I suspect this was done intentionally to serve some sort of artistic purpose, especially on Operation Mind Control, which is just an okay song. The Back in Black AC/DC cover doesn't really do anything different from the original, except add a scorching reed guitar solo, which is always welcome. Nightmare City combines reggae with rock. Great Expectation is not a great song, and it's quite a drag lyrically, the opposite of inspiring, truth be told. Choices Mashup sounds like new metal with its distorted vocals and icy guitars that sound like synths. The cover of the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows is good. It's more rock oriented, but also pretty trippy, switching between 4/4 and 7/8 time. This segs directly into the album's coda, which is a good short instrumental. So there are several very good songs here, but nothing I would call gold. And there's some mid songs here, so I will give this album a 3.5-star rating. It's good.
Great, Rich. That was terrific. You actually grabbed a lot of what I was going to say. So I share my bottom pick, Rich, is also Kaleidoscope. Um, Again, like you said, I think that there's some good moments on it. I definitely feel like you can tell that the band is trying to refine its way and identity after not making a record, for 10 years or so. And I know 9/11 being, New York at that time, 9/11 actually brought Living Color back together, which I think was very, if we're talking about if anything positive came out of it, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of people that were right here in the heat of things kind of, you learn very quickly that life is very short and you start to value the things that you might have taken for granted. And in the case of Living Color, I think their relationships were repaired actually in the aftermath of 9/11. So I kind of look at Kaleidoscope as a record where, hey, we're kind of meeting each other again. Everyone went their own ways, and what is Living Color now? And so I feel that some of it is very tentative. Like I almost feel, Rich, I don't know if you got this sense, like if they had maybe another 4 to 6 months where they lived with the songs a little more and kind of maybe played with some of the arrangements and so forth, I think that some of it would have come together a little bit better. I also agree with you. I think the production is one of the biggest problems with me in this record. It's the only Living Color album that I feel like is almost like an arm's distance away. Like it's not allowing me as a listener to get close to the music. So like I like some of it, but I feel like it doesn't connect with me in the way that the other records do. There is one moment though that there are a couple things I like. My favorite thing, you actually mentioned the song. I love Nightmare City. Um, it's haunting, frightening, creepy. I love the reggae dub verses and Corey's voice over that with these like high angelic voices kind of speaking to the singer. And then the chorus is like crushing and heavy, almost like Bad Brains-ish. Um, and I also want to mention on a lot of this album, some of the production things that you were talking about remind me of Doug Wimbish's previous group, Tackhead. So I feel like a lot of the production was kind of trying to do kind of Living Color meets Tackhead kind of stuff in the 2000s, so to speak. And I think some of it kind of is a little disjointed as a result, but it works lovely on Nightmare City, which I think is incredible. It's like I would rank that as one of their best songs. But that song is so glorious in the middle of the record, and I feel like nothing else kind of quite makes it to that level. And I feel like a lot of the songs are kind of more forgettable. It's not, again, like you said, not terrible, but a little more forgettable. I love their cover of Back in Black, but I think that I thought to myself, man, if they had the production from the first couple records, that would be one of the best AC/DC covers ever because performance is incredible and Corey sounds great. Like you said, Vernon pulls out this great guitar solo in it. Um, but yeah, so I think that it's like a disjointed record where they're kind of meeting each other once again and trying to figure it out. So yeah, I would put Kaleidoscope, I would probably give it like somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. So I'm exactly in line with you. This is the record that I find that I listen to the least. I don't really
Okay.
come to it much.
Do you want to call it 3.25?
Yeah, let's do that. Or a
All right.
3.3 or something like
That's
that.
what, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. My number five is their fifth album, The Chair in the Doorway. It's from 2009. By this point, it's pretty clear that this band has a rather negative outlook on life in general, or at least that's the impression you'd get from their art. Opener Burned Bridges imagines life after one has cut ties with everything and gone off the grid. Vernon Reid channels the devastation through his guitar, which at times neighs like a horse and tweets like a bird. The man is incredible. Next track, The Chair, is an intense maze of sound, the guitar sounding like a scrambled radio signal. Some of the vocals are a bit rote, but this is a good song. Decadence, I think that's how you'd pronounce it. Decadence is a churning heavy rocker with a killer guitar solo. But then the upbeat young man is not heavy, and that one just does not deliver for me. That's the weakest song, though. Everything else is at least good, and Bless Those Little Annie's Prayer is excellent, featuring some groovy funk that gets pretty rude. Out of My Mind is also excellent, another blisteringly heavy track. The album ends with some more strong songs, including the hitting track Asshole, that has a great heavy riff and riffy guitar solo. This is a very respectable effort that solidifies their bleak outlook on the world. So I'm up to 3.75 stars. Really good.
And you're going to laugh. And I swear, folks, Rich and I did not talk about our lists at all, but we're mirroring again. So my number five is also The Chair in the Doorway. I agree with your assessment. I was really relieved when this album came out because I was a little worried about after Kaleidoscope, I was like, ugh, wonder what's going on with my guys. And then I got this record and I said, oh, all is well. Everything is cool. So I love this album. It really, especially, I know how you felt about this, Rich. I feel like the first half of the record in particular is really good. Like really, like they feel like they're on the same page, and it's a really interesting kind of concept where it's bleak, but they're kind of you're going through these different characters. I adore The Chair, the second song. It's a bizarro, very short tune that is like where you hear Corey really powerhousing through the vocals. And just a tremendous hook, and it's great. One of my favorite all-time Living Color songs. There are actually two of my all-time favorite Living Color songs on this record. You mentioned one of them, Decadence, which I think should have been the first single. It's tremendous. It's an indictment of politicians and people who are really wealthy at the expense of all the others. I couldn't think of a more fitting song to where we are in our world today. But that song often comes to me because lyrically it's fantastic and just really hooky and just a mean riff. And the band just sounds huge on it. It's a great, great song. And the other song that I absolutely adore that I think is a hidden gem in their catalog and also would have been a great, powerful song, much in the realm of some of their other more popular ones, is Behind the Sun. And Behind the Sun, kind of, we start off focusing lyrically, it really talks about the aftermath of Katrina, but it also kind of is related to what's happening to poor communities all over the world. It is an incredible song, great lyric, really funky and groovy. I know Richie talked about the groove element in this record. I felt like Living Color got their mojo. They were like, all right, this is where we are. And so that song is great, although it's not the choruses are have heavy guitars, but in general, it's more of a kind of swinging tune. But if you really listen to the lyrics and and the choruses in particular, he's talking about we are the people behind the sun, the dark side of the sun. And it's really, really just tremendous, beautiful, uplifting, but sorrowful at the same time, just prime living color. So yeah, so for those of you that don't know the record, please check out Behind the Sun. It's incredible. And such a standout track. It actually bowled me over. And I feel like I had a conversation once with Vernon. I said, I want you to know that if no one has ever told you, no one told you today, Behind the Sun is amazing. And he looked at me and he kind of smiled. He said, wow. He goes, people don't talk to me about that song. And I said, I know they should. It's such a great song. But so I really love the first half of this record in particular. I think it's really great. And then I think it's kind of good. Then I think there are a bunch of really good songs. And then that secret track, Asshole, is fantastic. Um, on the digital, for those of your listeners and watchers that stream, it's not like a hidden track. It kind of shows up right away. But when you got the CD at the time, I remember I didn't even know it was a song. And I think I was doing something. And then all of a sudden I hear the song come in tracks later because there were like these empty tracks and then it comes on. I was like, oh my God, this is a great song. Why is it hidden? So yeah, but I feel the same way. This is a return to form for me. I would also give this about a 3.75, like very good. Yeah, so this was a great return. I would also say that I hope, particularly with this record, I'd love this to exist on vinyl. Right now, it's only streamed, and you could get the CD when it came out, but this definitely deserves a vinyl treatment. It's a great record.
Wow. So you're very high on it, obviously.
It was really nice for me, and it's still, like I said, the standout tracks to me really still like they're always in my psyche. I hear them, so I was very happy when this record came out.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
good record.
Okay, we're on to number four. I've got their sixth and most recent album. It's from 2017, Shade. On Shade, Living Color once again bring the heavy as well as their characteristic negative attitude. There is more blues on this album than any of their other ones, such as the excellent cover of Robert Johnson's Preachin' Blues. It actually sounds fresh, mixed with Living Color's big rock sound. Come On is another excellent song featuring some trippy guitar. Corey Glover does a good job rapping on Program, which totally rocks. The cover of the Notorious B.I.G. track, Who Shot Ya? That's gold. A perfect marriage of Living Color's heavy rock mixed with rap. The Marvin Gaye cover, Inner City Blues, is excellent, benefiting from some tasty guitar muscle, while Two Sides provides the record with a killer ending. Over half of these songs are excellent, and there's nothing here less than good. I can't quite get to the point where I call the album as a whole excellent, but it's close. I'm at 4.25 stars. Very, very good.
Rich, we are totally on the same plane. So Shade is also my number four. I feel very similarly to you, and I was nodding my head because I was like, yep, yep, I feel the same way. What I found about Shade that I love that it is like a heavy reimagining of a bluesy inflected living color without it sounding kind of trite or them trying to be blues. It feels very natural. And it's great because they didn't sacrifice their heavy stuff to have that bluesy flavor. It's kind of like a deep flavor, and in some songs it comes through more on like Who's That, Invisible, Glass Teeth. Those songs are the ones where they're really embracing this bluesy kind of direction, and I love it. Um, as I said, because it doesn't feel trite or just like, hey, this is a cool flavor to go in this direction. It feels like it was really earnest and organic, and it works really well. And they're just killing it. So, the blues figure is in terms of the figures in terms of the writing figure prominently throughout. So you're kind of hearing these things in other places, even if the song is really heavy. You might hear Vernon doing something very bluesy, or Corey doing a very bluesy kind of like vocal melody thing happening. And I'm here for it. I like it a lot. This feels like their most consistent record since their initial run of records too. So it's great that this is their most recent album because it kind of shows that hopefully this is a direction they can go into. I want to echo, I love the cover Preaching Blues. It's almost like they reimagined it, became a living color song. Same thing with Who Shot Ya. I think Who Shot Ya is terrific and it was really clever and not corny. It's hard to cover a Biggie song, especially being from New York, and most of those the Living Color boys are from Brooklyn, so you knew that if they were going to go there, they had to make sure they were on point. It's terrific. I want to mention I mentioned a bunch of the ones that I also love. Come On, I think it's a great song. Could have been a hit single, if there is that kind of thing anymore. But my two favorites, I love the opener, Freedom of Expression, Fox. I think that's fantastic. And my ultra favorite is another one that's a little bit different, is Always Wrong. I think that's a fantastic song. I love the songwriting about it. Again, it has that kind of slightly dim view of the world, or the worldview being a little bit dark, but it's kind of done it in a poppy slash hard rock way that's really terrific. I think Corey's vocal performance is really excellent on this record throughout. And I agree with you. I feel like this is the worst song is very good on this record. And I feel again, I also want to mention that with this album with Shade, what I like a lot about it, and I don't know if you picked up on this, Rich, it felt punchier. Like the songs are shorter by and large, especially versus the two albums that came before, and even something later in their catalog, like Time's Up. These songs feel like they're shorter. It felt like they were really trying to capture stuff right off and not like get too not to let the song get too out of their hands. Like they really felt like they were trying to make short statements that were really strong. Melodically, they feel really rejuvenated, and so I really appreciate it. And I don't know if you felt this way, but when I listened to Shade, like I want to hear it again right away because I was like, oh, this is great. I want to listen to it again. I actually listened to it again this morning. And I was thinking to myself, wow, these songs are so great and they were fun. There's like a semblance of the band kind of, again, rediscovering their footing and kind of saying, this is living color going into the 21st century. And this is kind of what we're doing. So I really appreciate that because a lot of times there are bands that you really love and they put out later records and you're kind of like you're forgiving because they're bands that you love, whereas with Shade, with Living Color, I could probably say, hey man, if you haven't heard Living Color in a while, you should really check out Shade. It's a great record. So I would give Shade something similar. I would probably just give it a 4.0, but it's a strong 4.0. It's a great record.
Okay, yeah. I thought about going with 4.0 as well, just because 4.25 seems too close to my top three.
Yes.
But I gave it the 4.25 because it really is pretty great.
Yep.
Pretty great. All right. So this might be where we part ways.
Maybe. Let's see.
Um, my number three is the debut, Vivid. It came out in 1988. So this album takes me right back to the end of my teenage years in the late 80s. It still holds up today. You can't hold back Cult of Personality with its blistering guitar riff, the unbelievable euphoric solo, Corey Glover's commanding performance, and commentary that applies very well today with Donald Trump. Desperate People, dear Lord, the crushing riffage. Corey's vocal performance is off the chain. Those high notes. Open Letter to a Landlord, such a great song, really tugs at the heartstrings. Funny Vibe is a funky anti-racist song. To me, it's not one of the strongest on the album, but it's still excellent. The rocked up Talking Heads cover is killer. A brilliant interpretation. I dig covers that reimagine the song in some way, and Living Color do exactly that. I adore Broken Hearts, such an easygoing groove with gigantic big beat drums. Mick Jagger on mouth harp. Mick Jagger was an early advocate for Living Color and instrumental in getting them signed. I bet you know about that, Peter. Um, and that song is also interesting 'cause if it has a subtle use of horn too. There's a little bit of horns that come in through too that just accentuate it in this tasty golden way. I love it. Glamour Boys is charming, maybe a little gay sounding, which is fine by me. But I remember some teenage boys being turned off by it. It's like, whatever, dude. And Which Way to America is an awesome protest song against income inequality. So this is truly an excellent album, but a few things keep me from going all the way to 5 stars. I Want to Know is just an okay song. Middleman is good, but merely good, not at the level of the best songs here. And I'm not too crazy about What's Your Favorite Color. But despite these few little shortcomings, I'm still giving the album a 4.5, which is excellent in my book. The sheer talent on display here is off the charts, a mind-blowing debut.
I agree. And we do diverge here a bit. This was the hardest thing for me to do in when we were talking about ranking records. I had a hard time. I could f easily flip my number two and three and make cases on both ends. So today my number three is Time's Up, the second Living Color full-length record. Um, this record was highly anticipated, and it was one of those records that, like me and all my muso friends, we were dying to get a copy of this record. I got a promo of it very early on, and I think my friends, like I had more people visiting me in college at that point than I knew what to do with because I had the new Living Color record maybe a week or two before it came out, and it doesn't disappoint. Time's Up is a tremendous record. It is Living Color stretching boundaries in a way that, like, they were already hinting at under their awesome debut, but Time's Up really takes things to the next level, and it shows Living Color's, width and depth, if so to speak. So you really get all of their influences on display, mixed in this like rich Living Color stew, which is fantastic. And it's really it's a brave record too. It was kind of hearkening, and I think Living Color in general, they along with a handful of other bands, I think about Living Color, 24/7 Spies, I think about Primus, I think about Faith No More, and I think about King's X and Jane's Addiction. I feel like those groups were really, and in the metal world, Voivod, because they started going a little more prog. But these groups were kind of the hearkening of what was going to happen with the Seattle explosion. And the idea was that, like, hey, we don't have to wear spandex and try to look cute and have girls in videos. We can talk about real stuff. We can rock. We can challenge listeners because people are smart. And if, as long as you're making good organic music, people will go on the ride with you. And you were seeing that happen on MTV. And so I remember seeing the video for Type, which was kind of living color playing in literally like a kind of a garbage dump heap kind of thing, showing kind of like a almost a new America that was that was crumbling, an empire crumbling. And Type is incredible indictment of what's going on. We are the children of concrete and steel. I mean, like, it's really just tremendous. And so I right away became a huge fan of Time's Up. It's a bit of a dense record, if I'm being a little honest, which is probably the only reason why Time's Up for me wasn't quite my number two. I was having this struggle with my number two and three, but it's incredible in terms, like I said, of all the bases covered and how well it's done. And I love the playfulness of it too, the idea that, hey, we can just try doing something different. So you have a really straight up ballad, Love Rears Its Ugly Head, which was actually a big hit on the record. And it was great to hear Living Color do that. Corey sounds tremendous and playful. It's great to hear them just do a cool love song like Broken Hearts from the first record, but this one goes even more broken down and fun. Um, and it's really great. But my favorite song, so I mentioned already Type. I adore Pride, History is a Lie that they teach us in school. I mean, as someone that was like growing up, you were just like hit, and as a person of color, hearing that really just moved me in very heavy ways. I connected big time. Having the most awesome Elvis is Dead, just incredible song. The energy, getting Little Richard to guest star and sing against Corey, and then having Maceo Parker playing sax solo. I mean, it's just incredible what they were doing. The kind of really just trying to push boundaries, and it was just great. Behind like a heavy James Brown groove, out of control, just out of control. And I love, and then there's what I love about Time's Up too is that it's so wide and vast. There's so many different colors we're seeing of living color, right? Shades of colors. So you have the beautiful Solace of You, which is almost a South African kind of groove and feel, but it's still living color and it's beautiful. They can take my land, tell me I'm not who I am. I've got the solace of you. Just beautiful, terrific, terrific music. And then you could have something like ornery and really like heavy, like Someone Like You, which to me is one of those brilliant tracks that's hidden that talks about what's going on in the community and like violence and police brutality and so forth. Just incredible. Love it. I want to make sure that I mentioned, because I know I was talking about the creative floodgates opening for this band on the second record, which all great bands to me do, whether it's the Beatles or the Stones or Zeppelin. Something happens with great bands in second records. It's kind of like, okay, you kind of did it the first time. Now, are you really going to be able to do it again? And Living Color certainly shows up artistically. And you can't find this better than on This Is the Life, which is the closer. It's one of my favorite, it's definitely amongst my top living color songs of all time. It's an incredible journey. It's long, it's a little proggy, it's almost cinematic in terms of the music and what's happening with the bass underneath the guitars, and it's kind of almost like an orchestra of guitars. There's all these different shades that living color are kind of addressing, and Vernon is playing at such a high, creepy, cool level. It's tremendous. We're starting to get that some of those Middle Eastern inflections even there, which is really great. And Corey just like delivers vocal like no other. But it just the lyrics always hit me hard. It is an incredible, tremendous song. It's truly, I know that word is used a lot, epic, but I always say that This Is the Life is a truly epic living color song. And if people don't know it, they should. It's great. So This was me. I'm gritting my teeth at calling Time's Up my number three, but I would say Time's Up for me is number three, and I would put it as a very strong 4.5.
All right. Very cool. On to number two. I've got their third album, Stain, from 1993, my favorite year in life. This is a killer album. Killer. It's a harsh blast of negativity and rage. For years, it was my go-to album when I needed to release my pent-up anger. Quite therapeutic. Opener Go Away begins with heavy, chugging guitar and low-end bass courtesy of brilliant new bassist Doug Wimbish. The lyrics go, I see the starving Africans on TV. I feel it has nothing to do with me. I sent my $20 to Live Aid. I paid my guilty conscience to go away. Now go away. Just brutally honest, depressingly bleak. The guitar solo is face melting. There are, however, a few diversions from the relentless onslaught. Bye is a much lighter affair, a playful tune about the benefits of bisexuality. Nothingness is also light, dominated by synth, but with a bleak outlook that fits the album well. WTFF is a hip hop inflected instrumental that goes right into This Little Pig, which is the thrashiest song here. Some sick guitar. Hemp is a strange art piece, and the final track, Wall, is about the need to break down the barriers between us. Really great song, just amazing. And there are so many great songs on this. Ignorance is Bliss, Leave It Alone, Mind Your Own Business, Never Satisfied. Just crushing, incredibly powerful songs. And you can tell from those titles how negative the album is. Um, the relentless negativity isn't for everyone and no doubt turns off some people, but I think this is fantastic stuff. I'm up to 5 stars.
You did a great job breaking that down. I'll more on that later for me. My number two is Vivid. Um, so this was again hard, but Vivid is was such a lightning bolt for I think music fans in general. It's one of those things that when you were following the hard rock world, it was like almost like Living Color and a handful of other bands basically just kind of stake their claim and we're like, I know you guys are all listening to Motley Crue and a lot of the stuff you see on MTV and Poison and things like that, and that's cool, but check this out. It's just like totally stomped over anyone. And I remember listening to Vivid and like how fresh it sounded at the time. It still sounds huge and fresh. It still connects. And it's just really you can tell that they're having fun and they're playing with, realizing, hey, we're in a great band with some great like musos. Let's write some really great songs and like put it out there and you feel it. It's just such a really cool record, and to think that it's such a accomplished debut. It feels like they kind of arrived ready, which is hard to find. There are very few bands, even bands I really like, where you can say, "Oh, their debut is great." Like I'm a huge Rush fan, but for me, it took an album or two for them to kind of find their way. Living Color arrived, and they were like, "Hey, this is what it is," and that was really refreshing. Um, you said a lot of great stuff too, so I don't want to over repeat things, but of course, Cult of Personality is one of those enduring songs that you hear a lot and I never tire of it. It's just so powerful, and the lyrics, unfortunately, are just couldn't be more apropos. It shows the power of music and unfortunately how little the needle is moved within our society. But just one of the all-time best hard rock riffs ever written, regardless. Um, And like you, Desperate People, my Lord. I mean, that I remember having a hard time getting to side two because it's like the fourth song on side one. And I don't think I even got to Open Letter to a Landlord for a bit because I kept playing Desperate People. That song riff, I always felt that that should have been a single. I was shocked that it wasn't because it's such a great song. Again, a towering riff, much like kind of like a slower, heavier kind of, vibe versus, let's say, Cult, but still powerful, memorable. The lyrics are biting, great choruses, and talking about like some heavy stuff, and I just terrific song, one of my favorites of theirs. Um, I also agree with you. Open Letter to a Landlord, beautiful, poetic, so important, something that we're still dealing with in a society. Again, I always felt that that song should have done even better. Maybe people weren't ready for it, but terrific song, some of Corey's best singing ever, and just heartfelt. Um, I just love this whole record is great. I adore the Talking Heads cover of Memories Can't Wait. I love Talking Heads. I actually dare I would say would probably argue I actually like the Living Color version more. They really made it their own and kind of did something really cool with it, vocally in particular. It's just really well arranged and just incredible. And live, they used to do a really great reimagining of even their own cover, which was kind of fun. They used to be very playful and do cool stuff with it at the end. Great cover. And it made me really. It was also really cool that they thought, hey, let's do a Talking Heads cover on our first album. Just really cool stuff. And in the late 80s, people weren't really in that headspace. And I thought it was great. Which Way to America? Like you said, just an ultimate heavy protest song that doesn't come off cheesy, which, is hard to do. It was kind of like I actually see Vivid in a lot of ways as a modern late 80s hard rock protest album without being preachy, which is what I've always loved about Living Color. Kind of like they're very quick to talk about what's wrong with the world, but also quick to talk about what's going on with me too, which is hard to do because very often it's easy to kind of get on a soapbox and complain about what other people need to do when you're not, you know, kind of looking within. So I love Vivid. It sounds fresh. The reason why I picked Vivid over Times Up, Rich, for me was a very because it came to me. I was really splitting hairs, and the only reason why I gave Vivid the nod, I think the main reason is just because I felt that there's not really any fat on Vivid. There's some areas in Times Up where like there's Under Cover of Darkness and Oleology and like some and Tag Team Partner, which were like these little snippets and little songs that were kind of cool, fun, exploratory. But I felt like, the record kind of expanded and was a little longer than it needed to be. Whereas Vivid, to me, doesn't really have any of that. It's kind of even some of the songs at the end are a little shorter. Even Glamour Boys is funny, but it's like he says, I'm no glamour boy, I'm fierce. And the
Right.
song's a little fierce. You know what I mean? Like it's great. And I felt like the mission was very tight. So, and I always feel like Living Color when they are making tight records, I think we mentioned that when we're talking about Shade and why it's so successful too as a later record, it's like let's cut the fat, really get to the songs. And I feel like when Living Color does that, they always win. So that's why Vivid got the nod for me just over Time's Up by a hair. Even though I can maybe argue my favorite songs from Time's Up, I might like even a little more than a lot of my favorite songs from Vivid. But as a whole record, song to song, it's like you can't beat it. So I would give Vivid in the Living Color catalog, I give it a 4.75. But overall, if someone was talking to me about like best debuts, it definitely to me is among like the top 20 debuts,
Uh,
rock debuts of all time easily.
yeah. All right. Very cool. I get it. And that was a great review. And Talking Heads is very New York. So
Indeed.
very, very appropriate. Um, all right. So now we're at number one. Yes, I have their second album, Time's Up, from 1990. Very interesting year in rock. Um, this album has to be my number one. It's as great as the debut is. I feel they really take it up a notch here, creating something more sophisticated and diverse. I suppose you could call it an art rock album, but it's an amazing mixture of many different styles: heavy metal, jazz fusion, hip hop, Afro pop. Vernon Reed's most mind-blowing guitar work is here. Opener Time's Up mixes ferocious thrash with more slowed down rhythmic verses that are equally powerful. Mind-bending guitar, bass, and great drums. It goes straight into the history lesson interlude featuring the unmistakable voice of James Earl Jones. Then we get Pride, which is such a triumph, an extremely powerful anti-racism song that can bring tears to my eyes if I'm not careful. Another unbelievable guitar solo, more amazing guitar lines. Then we get a left turn into Love Rears Its Ugly Head, which has elements of funk and R&B, a fun and very funny song. Corey Glover's vocals are amazing. He's really at the top of his game here. Elvis is Dead, another fun song, sort of a mixture of James Brown and metal guitar. We also, as you mentioned, get a brief monologue from Little Richard and cool sax solo from the legendary Maceo Parker. Information Overload has an insane guitar intro. You won't ever hear another guitarist play quite like that. And it's another scorcher and probably more relevant than ever. Information Overload. Just then we get Undercover of Darkness, uh, a great funk rock song featuring a great rap from Queen Latifah. The Brief Tag Team Partners has beatboxing, and the gorgeous Solace of You brings the Afro pop. The final track, This Is the Life, sums up some of the weighty themes of the album by bringing forward the cold, hard reality of our existence. The incredible beginning of the song is Middle Eastern tinged, as well as the outro. Amazing song. So, this album is crushingly heavy at times, while also bringing a wide array of colors. Another mind-blowing experience. They really knock it out of the park with this one. Way out. Obviously, 5 stars.
Yeah, I got so excited to talk to you about Living Color. I wasn't showing my records, but this is the original pressing of Time's Up. I mean, you said it all. It's just an incredible record. Here's my original copy of Vivid, which I just talked about. Oh, so good.
Great condition, too. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's crazy. This record, I'll be honest with you, I bought this record probably 4 or 5 times because I gave away, like, I would play it and my friends would be like, "Oh my God," I'd be like, "All right, just take it. I'll buy it again." So that's probably why mine is in really good shape. Um, and then I also want to show Shade, which is the latest, and it's right. They actually did a beautiful job. It's actually a cool, um, you know, gatefold sleeve, which is the first Living Color album pressed with gatefold sleeve, which is kind of interesting. But um, before I announce my number one, which I think everyone knows what it's going to be, I did want to talk about because we were focusing about their full lengths. I wanted to mention also that Living Color has two, well, they have like three live records, but two official kind of live things that are great in case people aren't aware. One of them is a live at CB's recording that Sony put out kind of recently in the 2000s, but it's an old recording from, I believe it's from the whole Vivid tour, and that's really great. And they're doing some songs that will end up being on Time's Up, which you just talked about, Rich, and that's a great one. And then the second one is called Dread, and I'll talk about that one in a second because it relates to my number one. And my number one is Stain, right? This is actually the Dutch pressing because it didn't come out on vinyl in America originally. I think they should put it.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you bought the CD, you might remember, Rich, it was red. You remember it was like red. The vinyl is, and then you pulled out the actual like liner notes, and it was this color. On vinyl, it just is this color, right? So you said a lot of the same things I feel about Stain. Stain to me is one of those records. It is dark for sure, but it is an incredible tight record. It's just like every song on this album is really fantastic. To me, it's Living Color kind of after this wonderful like kaleidoscope of a record Time's Up, right? And they went all these different directions. It's almost like they've toured by this point, and for people that don't know the history, they actually Living Color won the Grammy back to back for Best Hard Rock Performance. So they won for Vivid, and then they won again for Time's Up. A lot of people don't remember that. I don't even know if the second win was televised. Maybe it was. I don't remember. Living Color fans will yell at me. But yeah, they won two Grammys for Best Hard Rock Performance. Well deserved too. And so they were kind of seen as like, hey, this really successful, darling group. Um, and then I think that a lot of the world happened, and they started realizing that often their achievements and who they were as people were still being judged because of the color of their skin, because of them being from New York City, all sorts of like nonsense, right? Knowing that the roots of pretty much American music comes from blues and black creative art forms. So I think that there was a sense of frustration, and obviously, losing Muzz Skillings, the original bass player, totally changed the soup. You lose a band member, even if you get an amazing band member, which they have now, Doug Wimbish, can't find a better possible player and more perfect. For those of you that don't know, Doug Wimbish created the bass lines for a lot of early hip hop records, including writing and performing White Lines. So, he's this tremendous player. He was in Taghead, that was really far out, doing great stuff. And he joins for this record, and it felt like all bets are off. Like we're gonna kind of let out a lot of our frustration. There's a lot of the lyrics to me, Rich, I don't know if you find this, are a little more turned inward, even though they are talking about social issues. Opener Go Away, arguably, other than the opener, other than Cult of Personality, which opens Vivid, is like by far the best opener that Living Color has on a record. It's just tremendous, lyrically, musically, and it sets the stage for what's to follow. And the record, I call Stain an unrelenting hard rock statement. It's just song after song after song that's great and purposeful, and the band sounds lean and mean. I feel like they have something to prove to themselves as well as to the world, that hey, we lost an original member, but we've now kind of stepped up our game. And so the production is my favorite produced Living Color record. They changed producers. Their first two albums are fantastically produced by Ed Stasium. I want to give him his props. He's an incredible producer, produced Ramones records, produced like a ton of stuff. And the first two Living Color albums sound great. The Stain is done by Ron St. Germain, so it's and the band, so it's a little more lean and just massive, crushing production. Ron St. Germain produced Bad Brains. He did Quickness, which is one of like the a couple of years before, one of my favorite hard rock and hardcore albums ever made. And so he brings that to the Living Color sound. I want to mention in particular, I mean, you mentioned a lot of the songs. I could talk about every song on this record. It's just great. But I want to mention Auslander, which is closes the first side, and it's basically about xenophobia and the fear of like immigrants and what's going on, but taking it from the point of view, like how are you not seeing my struggles and what it means to be a refugee or what it means to be an immigrant? And it's incredible. Everything that I want isn't everything that you got. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's so timely, and unfortunately, it's a theme that we're seeing throughout. And they made a really crushing video for it too that wasn't really shown by MTV, and I can't remember why. Would have been great for them to show it, and it would have been momentous because it's a great song and has a great message. I also want to mention the gorgeous Nothingness, which was written by Will Calhoun, and I don't want to mislead people, but I believe it's about maybe the passing of his father. It's someone close to him that passes, and he wrote this beautiful song about it. Um, it's you should also know if you haven't checked this out, Rich, this album is great because a lot of the B-sides, the singles, are not on the record and on the original record. So the B side to Nothingness has a beautiful piano only version, piano and vocal only, and it's gorgeous. It's a shorter version of Nothingness. Absolutely a must find. I've been shocked that no one's put out like a deluxe edition with all these B-sides. Leave It Alone, which is the great first single from this record, has an awesome B-side of Prince's 17 Days. They do a rocked out version that's fantastic. And then there's another song, I think it's the B-side to Auslander, and it's called TV News. And it's a great track, and it actually is included on if you bought the European version of Stain, it's actually the closing track. It doesn't close with Wall, it closes with TV News. And it's a creepy, bizarro track that's kind of Middle Eastern and kind of electronic, but still heavy. Absolutely terrific. So they're like on this very creative patch with this album. So this whole record to me was just like a sound that was well needed, and just really timely and great. And it's their most consistent album. So I love, love, love this record. My favorite Living Color song is on this record as well, which is Wall. Um, as you mentioned, Rich, just one of the most powerful endings of a record. The message is strong. The music is incredible. You know, we hate each other. It opens up, we hate each other because of race and religion. We hate each other because of class and division. Just incredible, incredible. I'm sorry, class and position, he says. Yes. So just terrific, terrific lyrics, really solid. We want to know why is love so hard to come by? you know, just really just tremendous,
Really.
beautiful, beautiful stuff. And very, very heavy lyrically, but very important and need to be said. And I feel like I always feel that Stain is one of those records that didn't get, I mean, it did well. And the tour was great, and I got to see them several times. But I always felt that this record didn't get its just due. And I think some of it was that yeah, obviously music, it came out in 93, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So it was right when music was kind of changing. And so not so much that Living Color was out of favor, but I think that people weren't sure where they kind of fit in the alternative hard rock, metal, grunge new world that we were in. And so I think that the record got, it did well, but it got shuffled out more than it should have. And it's one of those records that I know when I've played people more recently, they're like, "Oh my God, this record's incredible." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It's tremendous." So, the last thing I want to say about this too, and I know you mentioned it early on, I was so happy that you did, but there's a great collection. So after this album, obviously in the tour, they broke up because they kind of couldn't there were a lot of things going on from my understanding in the group, without, spreading gossip, but there was just a lot of stuff. Everyone was pulling in different directions. It often happens. But I really urge people, and unfortunately there's no vinyl to it. There's a CD. I urge people to pick up a couple things. I'd mentioned the couple live things. There's an EP called Biscuits.
Biscuits.
Yeah, which is fun. And I don't know if you know this too. In the United States, Biscuits was really short. It was a real EP. It was like 6 songs. This is actually, and this is like an EP version. If you get the European version, like this one, it's actually a little bit longer, and it's a full album, and it's like almost all live cuts. So the EP, this version has them covering like James Brown, they do Al Green, they do Jimi Hendrix. It's really cool and fun, and they have a great unreleased song that came from the Time's Up sessions called Money Talks. which they actually used to perform all the time, Rich. So they actually performed it, I think, around the Vivid time. That song was kind of floating for a bit and eventually shows up on this EP, Biscuits. But if you get the CD of Biscuits, it's like almost like it's this EP and then like a whole live set almost. So I urge people, if you're into that, look for those B-sides I mentioned from the singles from Stain, look for the European version of Biscuits. And I would tell you, you'd mentioned the compilation from '95, Pride, The Best of Living Color. There are four songs on there that they actually finished for what was supposed to be their fourth album after uh, after Stain, and they're on that. And it really it always frustrates me listening to them because they're some of their best songs. So there's Release the Pressure, Visions, Sacred Ground, and These Are Happy Times. All four of those songs can't be found on anything else but that live compilation. They recut Sacred Ground for Kaleidoscope. That version is not so happening. Check out the ones on this album because those are produced by Ron St. Germain, who did Stain, and they're huge and they're great, great songs. So if people don't know them, if you want to know, hey, what would a Living Color record from like '95 kind of sound like with, Wimbish and this and that lineup? That's what that record would have sounded like. And it's kind of like it's a really cool melding of the Stain production, but then kind of doing some cool things that almost there's a lot of electronic effects and like cool stuff. It's a little tack heady because I think Doug Wimbish had a little bit more of an effect on them. I think Doug and Vernon were doing some really cool effects guitar wise, but Vernon is killing on these songs and they're huge and they're great. They're like belong with the Living Color canon. And when I got to see them when they first got together again before they recorded Kaleidoscope, they did a couple songs from there. They did Sacred Ground and they did Visions, which is a beautiful song. So if people don't know and they're like, jonesing because you only have six Living Color albums, really, you should definitely get that because it's almost like finding an EP or half an album within this best of. It's a really cool thing. So
Yeah, very cool. All right. Yeah. I have spent time listening to the non-studio album stuff. I heard Biscuits back in the day, and I was listening again this morning, getting pumped up for this video. And but I missed some stuff though. I did not. I don't know TV news, so I got to go check that out. So
yeah, you'll totally dig it because I know you like that. And again, you have to get it. I hope that they do a deluxe version. Again, they should reissue Stain. Someone's got to do because I know it's sold. It came very close to going gold, so it sold a few 100,000 records. It's pretty celebrated within the hard rock community and the Living Color community.
yeah,
But
yeah. Those in the know how
they
great it
know.
is. Oh,
Yeah,
did you give Stain five?
yes, Stain is
Okay.
perfect. Is like
All
a
right.
five of five.
All
Yes.
right. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to blast through my top 10 songs. If you want to comment on your songs, that's fine. But number 10, I've got Broken Hearts from Vivid, a very different side of this band. Number 9, Fight the Fight from Time's Up.
Great song.
Number 8, Under Cover of Darkness from Time's Up. Number 7, Love Rears Its Ugly Head from Time's Up. Number 6, Never Satisfied from Stain. Number 5, Time's Up from Time's Up. Number 4, Desperate People from Vivid. Number 3, Leave It Alone from Stain. Number 2, Pride from Time's Up. And number 1, I'm basic. I gotta go with Cult of Personality from Vivid, their signature song, their most famous song, and for damn good reason.
Yeah, can I tell you this part like freaks me out to try to pick songs. This was the albums I kind of could get together with, but the songs were so difficult.
It's
So what I
hard.
chose to do, and I'm so glad you mentioned a lot of the songs, 'cause I could totally throw out my list and say, yep, Rich's list is perfect. Great. I go with it too because there's so many great songs. So I'm going to do honorable mentions first because I was having a real hard time with this, and I decided to also try to like find representations from pretty much most of their records or all of their catalogs. So I kind of that was how I did this. But the honorable mentions, you'll laugh because they're great. The honorable mentions for me are Type, Open Letter to a Landlord, Visions, which I just mentioned, Go Away, and The Chair, because I love all those songs. But my top 10, starting with number 10, is Always Wrong from their last record, Nightmare City from Kaleidoscope, Behind the Sun from The Chair in the Doorway, Sacred Ground, the original version, the one from the Pride Best of. I love that. Auslander from Stain, Decadence, which is also from The Chair in the Door. Desperate People was also my number four. Um, just incredible from Vivid. This is the Life from Time's Up. Cult of Personality is my number two because, of course, just incredible. Vivid. And my number one, which I mentioned already, is Wall from Stain, which I just think is an incredible, incredible song. But yeah, but I mean, I could have, like I said, if you had given me your list and said, "Hey, Peter, are you cool with this?" I'd say sure, because all those songs that you mentioned are fantastic too. And I was yelling at myself, "How could you leave this off?" But they're really one of those groups that have such a, it's six albums, but they're like wonderful to jump into. There's so many great songs.
Yeah, yeah. It is a not a lot of albums for given how long they've been around. Um, you know, I don't know why that is, but it sounds like there may be personal reasons that we don't need to know about. So we should be grateful for what we have.
Yeah, and also the reality is too is that, Vernon in particular, right? He is just like he writes so much different music. He has stuff like Mask. He's got a solo, records. He just put out a great one this past year. Corey has a great solo record, and he's doing other projects with like heavy rock bands too that are terrific. And he does great tours where he sometimes is just doing standards like R&B standards from the 60s and 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to see that show, it is tremendous. And vocally, he is on fire. There's like three people that are as good as Corey Glover as a singer. I really feel like he's one of the most unsung singers. I was very happy to see that Rolling Stone ranked him as one of the best hard rock singers ever. I think they did a poll.
Oh,
And
cool.
he was like very high in that list, and he should be. He's tremendous. But he's doing stuff. Doug Wimbish is always playing bass for like a million famous people as well as doing his projects, as is Will Calhoun. I think he does a lot of jazz. So I think some of it is also like they have so many interests. They're such great players and musicians that they have to find the time when all the stars kind of
Yeah,
collide. They're like, okay, now's the time we can write.
that's
Um,
fair.
yeah.
And I
So
need to check out that solo stuff, man. And I did have a Vernon Reed solo album from
oh,
back in the day, an old one.
Mistaken Identity. That's
Yeah,
the other one. Yeah.
that one got more attention, I guess, for some reason. And that was really good from what I recall.
Yep.
Haven't heard it a long time, but all
Yeah.
right, Peter. Well, thank you so much for coming on again.
Rich, thank
This was a lot of fun, and it was really cool to uh, have as big a fan as you are. And so I guess that's it. We're going to sign off. Peace. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks, Rich. To storage, so I can kind of be able to access and see everything. And then she's actually going to steal the walk-in closet where they all are now for like
Okay.
her stuff. So we just have to do that.
Excellent.
But I couldn't reach Kaleidoscope or the chair in the doorway. But I have the physical CDs, but they never came out in vinyl. But I actually have a lot of cool living color, like 12 inches and stuff and whatever. And I
Okay.
even have their last album, Shade, on vinyl. So I have some props. So there'll be only two records that I can't really hold anything up for.
Okay.
But
In that case, we'll probably show, a digital version of it.
yep,
All right. Hey, listen, I I think I told you a little bit about my situation. I really do admire your record collection. I have a very tragic history of collecting records. I lost my teenage record collection on vinyl when I kind of went off the deep end on drugs and bailed out of college. And my ex-girlfriend put them in storage, but I was like homeless for a while and stuff, and I couldn't pay it. So that was the first tragedy. And I've just had so many ups and downs in my life. I've repeatedly had to sell some great CD collections, and once because of poverty, once because of drugs. And I just have not attempted to restart my collection. Maybe one day, but I have spent a fuck of a lot of money on on music, I assure you.
course. No, I know you have, and I have a lot of friends who've been in similar situations, Rich, where, hard times, sometimes things, this is actually the only things like I have other friends that are really into cars or really into clothes or really into something else that they collect. I just, as a singer and a musician, it's just kind of like, it's like, I think I joked with you last time, it's kind of like homework for me, and it's cathartic, and it's just like it's the only thing that kind of ties like pretty much my life, and the things I value. But I even joke, my son loves records and he's got his own little collection going on too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but I told him, I said, listen, man, when I'm long gone and you move on, don't feel that I said, I'd love you to keep the records, but I said, but I don't want it to be like a weight around your neck. If you sell them, which you'll certainly make a bunch of money on, and you do something cool with it, cool. Because I know young people, the idea, young people, even I've been reading more and more about like the kind of the minimalistic thing that goes on, like where they're not so wed to own a home or own, like I own my co-op, but other people are kind of like, hey, I want to travel, or hey, I might want to move sometime soon and not
Yeah.
do selling. It's a different mentality. So I've learned that, like, that might pass. My son might turn around and be like, no, Dad, I want to hold on to all this stuff because I think it's cool. And he might do something else with it. But for me, it's just like a nice comforting place, and there's something about, I also, like, I think I told you this before, I just feel, quite honestly, there are two things. One, sonically, I love, especially with older records, there's something about just analog production, and particularly with like hard rock records and a lot of reggae stuff I listen to, and jazz. There's something about analog, just it's warmer. The tape captures performances differently. There's room that gets involved with the sonics of it, and it's just very special. And I think it's hard to reproduce that digitally. So there's that. The second part of it is that I feel like the whole experience of like artwork and reading the credits and the lyrics in places, or just you have a certain relationship with it. And even I find newer releases that I pretty much, if they're available on vinyl, I almost always get them on vinyl because I pay attention more to the music. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, because you're sitting down, it's not like, oh, I'm just streaming, and it kind of becomes like a background thing. I find like when I have the record, I'm forced to put it on, listen to it, and I have to flip the record. So like I'm kind of like I'm actively listening. And so I feel like that's the main thing when I kind of, I still get CDs if a person, or a group releases something new and they're not available on vinyl but it is physical, I buy the CD. I just find that like when it's a stream only kind of thing, it's harder for me to pay as much attention to it. So that's kind of the bottom line with me. And I try to give art its credence, you know what I mean, and really listen. So, but that's my story. So, you know,
Yeah. Um, Paying attention is a big issue for me. And especially if I'm evaluating albums for something like this, I listen repeatedly, you know. Uh,
absolutely.
I'm amazed at people who, one and done, one listen and
I know, like it's weird, especially I
but
also
people in my community do that because they listen to everything. They listen to like 300, even 500 albums that came out that year. They're
right,
obsessed. Every Friday, new music comes
right.
out. They're going down the list. Oh man, I can't do that. I can't keep up with those people.
Yeah, but I also feel like that, Rich, quite honestly, some of that, I think some of it suffers, right? Because like you're trying to get through stuff just to, kind of check off the boxes. Like I've listened to all the releases that came out this week, but it's like, yeah, but have you really listened to them or you just got through them? And
Yeah,
I think that that's really important, being from the other side, like when I finish a record or I'm working on music. I always appreciate when people like connect with me and say, "Hey man, I listened to this song and I've been listening to it all day," or "I listened to your EP," or "I listened to your album and I've been listening to it all day and I really like," and I can tell they've been listening because they find the deep tracks that connect with them, or people that buy CDs and they tell me what they're listening to in their car. Still, they have old CD players, or I have a friend that has a fancy new car and he insisted that they built in a CD player, which I thought was great in this like fancy car. He's got this CD unit hanging on the bottom because they couldn't kind of work it around the electronics. But I get it because they're like real listeners. They're people that like I care about this. It's not just something I throw on casually or just say that I got through it. So I think the way that you're listening, my brother, is the way that music should be listened to. And I always have groups that like I'm supposed to dig that I just can't get into. But sometimes I buy a couple of their records and I say, you know what? In a couple months, I'm going to just kind of swim in that and see if I dig it, you know?
yeah,
And I think that that's cool too. I think that those are things, or, they're records that you kind of bought initially and you were like, this is okay. And then one day it calls to you and then you're like, oh my God, this is terrific. Why didn't I dig this before? So
yeah. That can happen for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
All right.
get
I
going.
think we've got plenty of time. I don't have an appointment until noon, and I think I'll have plenty of time to get lunch before that. So
Yes. Yes.
we're only dealing with six albums here, and let's see. I I guess we're ready to go. My
Yeah.
voice is warmed up. Are you ready?
I am totally ready, my friend. This is
Oh,
fun.
all right. Here we go.